Enterprise Management 360, your main source for tech news, analysis, podcasts, and videos for the enterprise.
Hello and welcome to the EM360 Podcast, where we have a weekly conversation with people who are impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Matt Harris, Head of Content here at EM360 and your host on today's episode. And today, I'm joined by Jorge Montiel. Jorge is the Head of Pre-Sales EMEA at Red Sift, and we're here to talk about brand protection and why it should be a key component of your security strategy. Jorge, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you so much coming on today. Could I just quickly, ask a little bit of background on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, definitely. So I run everything related to pre-sales engineering at Red Sift. Basically, I'm the techie of a sales team, and but more importantly, engaging with our customers to understand their business and technical requirements, and make sure that we can help them organize themselves and solve those top issues that they may have within their digital resilience cases.
Nice one, yeah, sweet. So obviously, a recent Gartner report stated that companies that implement CTEM, that's continuous threat exposure management, will have 3 times fewer incidents. What do we really mean by brand protection, and how does it utilize things like CTEM?
Definitely. So basically, what we mean by brand protection is anything that is out there in the internet that belongs to the organization. That's a first premise that we need to understand. And then it's a typical case of, you can't protect what you don't know about, or you can't protect what you can't see, in the sense that organizations really are one of the biggest challenges we find with our customers is that they're struggling to understand how big their digital estate and presence is. So the first step is to make sure that they know what they are. It's one of the premises. They know where they are in that journey. It's one of the premises of CTEM, to make sure that they can discover and keep an eye on everything they own, and then making sure that everything is well configured. Then after that, action anything that needs to be done, and then once they know everything that is theirs, protect their brand when it comes to impersonation. It's very, I'm sure you have heard or even been subject to people sending you phishing attacks, trying to make you to click on links that they look like like your Amazon, or they look like your bank, or they look like a known brand, and but they really are not that brand in particular. So being able to be protected by that is a continuous. That's why the CTEM is so important, because it's a continuous process that never really stops. You just get to a point in which you have it under control, but it evolves on a regular basis. So protecting your brand from those continuous threats that keep happening is something that is very key for our customers as well. And by keeping control over that, that's why in that recent study from Gartner, that's why they talk about 3 times fewer incidents. And of course, this is average across many sectors. It varies, and it can go up and down in that respect. So it's definitely something that our customers have shared with us that we should work together with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And from a strategy point of view, when you really come to protecting yourself as a company, should you prioritize a more reactive approach or a more proactive approach, and why?
Look, everybody loves the word proactive, right? So the first reaction is probably to say you need to be proactive, and it's true. However, it depends on where you are in your journey. So if you're just starting your journey and you're in that discovery phase in which you're assessing, again, part of the CTEM strategy, and you're assessing what you need to do, you're probably more reacting than proacting, because you need to tackle those that are more urgent to solve. But that is only during the first implementation phase. The whole point of implementing a CTEM strategy is to be as proactive as you can be, making sure that, and we'll talk about the regulations because they also touch on that, but making sure that you keep an eye on everything. If anything around what you're doing is badly configured, is not necessarily is a vulnerability yet. or not necessarily is something that you're being attacked on, but it is a possibility. And what we try to advise our customers on in terms of proactivity is to make sure, in a way, their house is in order. They have everything well configured based on the well-known standards across email security, across web security, domain registration, etc. And by being that proactive, making sure that everything is well configured, they're going to have definitely less issues in the future, for sure. And they're and very ties to the previous question we were discussing about.
Yeah, well said. And I think, obviously we've got, we're going to have a lot of CISOs listening to this particular podcast. And one thing that they'll be thinking about in this kind of conversation is the subject of compliance. So how can organizations, really do this while keeping up with the, current requirements of regulations and standards?
Definitely. Look, regulators are not technical people. So, but they do rely on existing standards. So a regulation might tell you with technical terms that you need to implement X, Y, Z. Let's say DNS security, or which is called literally DNSSEC, or you need to implement DMARC, or et cetera, et cetera. Or they might word it in a way that is open enough for interpretation in terms of what solution you may implement, but that you need to implement a solution to keep you protected. So even though they're not technical, they're relying on these standards that we've been talking about to keep them in check. So again, talking about the proactivity, once you get to that nice, stable, and hopefully and thankfully we have helped a lot of our customers be in that more stable state in that they are more proactive than reactive. By doing that, when the new regulation comes up, they would have probably been already in compliance, at least to a high level of degree, 80%, just to put a number to it, but a very high level of certainty that by the time a new regulation comes, because it's very likely it's going to be based on existing standards, our customers tend to be very well positioned in that respect. One example of those is DORA, so is the Digital Operational Resilience Act. From one side, it's putting a lot of pressure and a lot of liability into board of directors. From another side, we're talking about it applies mainly to financial services and software vendors that provide financial service software to these organizations, in which part of it is you can't just hide by, I didn't know about it, hence I'm not liable, or I didn't know I could implement this, I could implement that. All of that goes to, as soon as this gets implemented, I think it's at the beginning of next year, as in it goes into law, they're not going to have that excuse, and they can be personally, so these board of directors can be personally liable for it. Same for software vendors. Now, but what they're saying is you need to make sure you have visibility. You need to make sure that everything is well configured. So they're not talking about new things because, again, they're not engineers, and they shouldn't be engineers trying to tell you what to do. They're just saying, digital technologies evolve, digital landscapes evolve, and now you need to keep up to it. We need to protect our citizens and their data. So that's really what they should be caring about. But they do have technical advisors to understand what technologies, what standards are out there to keep everything in check. So in order to, again, just to summarize the answer, in order for CISOs and alike to be on top of these regulations, the first thing is, and I couldn't say this more often, the first thing is keep your house in order, keep everything well configured as per the best practices of all those standards that everybody knows about. But there's so many, and your digital estates are so vast, then of course usually these organizations would need help from someone like Red Sift.
Yeah, I love how you brought that down. And, just to kind of wrap up the subject of brand protection, where do you kind of feel like this particular part of the market is right now? Like, are there any trends that you see kind of emerging in the space, and where do you kind of really see brand protection like moving in the next 5 years? Do you think it'll be harder for companies to achieve, easier?
Look, there's a very clear statistics that says that right now, about 80% of the security threats are patchable. What I mean by that is similar to your phone, you can update it. As soon as you update it, you're protected, right? Similar to, in a more complex way, but it's very similar to, all of those servers and systems that keeps our digital lives alive, basically. By, I think it was 2025, 50% of those won't be patchable. What that means is we're talking about these vulnerabilities that that you can't really fix by sending a software update to a phone, to a system, to anything, to a car even. It would be based on lack of best practices in that respect. Now, it also means, and I can bet on this, even though I don't know the exact number, that by 2025, the digital world will be bigger than it is today. Would you agree with that? I mean, I'm sure this is not going to stay at the same size as it is today, right?
It goes without saying, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that just makes it the harder to actually keep on top of it. And even a software solution that is, processing a lot of data in the background to try to keep you safe, to try to give you all the information you need to discover everything you have, probably won't be enough either. And actually, as of now, the biggest trend, no surprise either, is artificial intelligence and the use of AI GPT, so generative artificial intelligence. So, and that should be definitely the next best thing, so that with natural language you can control and you can train your systems or the software that is providing you the service to basically keep an eye on everything and understand where the threats are coming from and how they're coming from. Understand how to auto-classify what you're seeing, because it's very nice to see we discover everything for you, but try to action 1,000 items with 3 people in your team. Even large organizations would struggle with that because they have all the priorities, because IT budgets don't get any bigger every year. And if they do, it's because you have a lot more work to do than you had the previous year. So net, it's probably not bigger than the previous year. So in that respect, we need automated tools. And obviously, based on AI and GPT is a really good bet. And we're all trying to get into that. I mean, Red Sift has been using OpenAI for many years now. It's not new to us, and actually, it's already been implemented in a few of our products in our platform. But effectively, we will try to use this AI GPT to make our customers' life a lot easier when it comes to classifying what they need to do. So we discover everything, thousands of hosts, and within thousands of hosts, you have 10,000 issues. How do you go about it? How do you prioritize the work? How do you make sure that if it is an easy fix and it can be fixed by automated tools, then go ahead and trigger that and fix it before I even go in front of my desk the next morning, right? So automation based on AI, I would say is a very safe bet for the next 3 to 5 years, because it's going to get smarter. It needs to be controlled, obviously. That's a different political problem, not political, but probably a different ethical conversation. But let's assume that everything will be in check when it comes to AI. Is definitely going to provide us with a lot of advantages in that respect.
Yeah, and I'd love to really hear about how we can sort of like apply some of this stuff. So have you got any examples of how, Red Sift has really helped implement some of these things and, really helped an enterprise achieve its security goals?
Definitely. So I'll talk about a specific case that we have. So there's this customer of ours is a large supermarket chain in Central Europe, and they use part of our platform to basically gain a lot more visibility into their exposure to the internet. So no surprise, they didn't really have a grasp on everything that they owned. They have a lot of marketing campaigns. They have a lot of siloed organizations, basically shadow IT organizations within the company, and they were very used to just spinning up, let's say, domains and third-party services based on their own domains, and let's say campaign xyz.com, and they started sending emails from that as soon as possible because it's very easy. I think IT has been for good reasons and for a lot of benefits have been democratized, and which means that you don't need to be an IT expert to register a domain and start sending emails with it, with even marketing tools, marketer tools to help you analyze the results of what you're doing, right? So you can implement that within seconds, not seconds, but within very low effort, and get the results that you want. But the flip side of that is that it also exposes you to possible threats. And so again, this company were suffering from some of that, and they started to first discover and then continuously monitor everything that it was in the cloud, even including third-party certificates, something that sounds very trivial. I mean, we've had certificates for decades now, and still today is one of the hardest things to manage. And they were not only struggling to manage the amount of certificates they had, but they were also struggling to manage third-party certificates. When you run your business digitally, you rely a lot on third parties. Even within the same website that looks and feels like your own brand, would probably be running, 5 to 10 third-party services. Your chat, when you open a support case, your support ticketing system, et cetera, et cetera. So they needed to keep an eye on those third-party certificates and their own certificates so that they stayed secure and also their service were up and running. And they had a lot of, standards. There are new standards that were coming up that they weren't able to implement because they couldn't have a visibility of their estate. And they're starting improving that when it came to, the headers of the web browsers, when people are browsing their websites, etc. And basically they started automating a lot of what they do. And then started seeing the benefit of doing everything automated versus manual work that is prone to errors, is endless spreadsheets that keep growing, and then they're even harder to manage. And they started seeing the value of removing all of that manual work, and more importantly, their business is up and running. Their security stand is very high. The security posture is very high. They're probably already in a good path of. Because of that, the CTEM didn't exist when they become our customer as a Gartner report, but now that Gartner has come out with that, then they now feel more confident that they're in a good continuous threat exposure management than probably other organizations that are not using tools like this.
Yeah, I love how you put that and sort of boil it down to really interesting stuff. Jorge, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to appear on this podcast.
No worries. Thank you. Very happy to be here, and have a good day. And
also thank you to everyone who listened to this podcast as well. We hope you took a lot away from the episode, but for further information on what we talked about, please head on over to redsift.com. That's REDSIFT.com. We'll be back next week with another episode in our podcast series, but until then, make sure you subscribe to this podcast on all major platforms, follow the conversation on our socials at EM360 Tech on Twitter and LinkedIn, and for more great daily content, please head on over to EM360tech.com.